Scott, who can run away from them. Blind trying to buy him a bit of time. Ozil, 2!
This is Barkley, away from Otamendi. He's got two runners to his left and one to his right. Barkley wants to go alone, and why not?
Manchester City are still alive here. Balotelli, Aguero!
Hello and welcome to the Football Hipsters podcast, the English breakfast. It's myself, Kris, back again after a week off. It was very strange last week not being a part of this show, but we are back with episode 18. My God, time flies. And as usual, Ross doesn't have days off because he's a professional. So welcome back, Ross.
Good evening.
How are we? All good?
Oh, yes, I'm having a wonderful day, thank you.
Yes, yeah. More on that later, listeners. There's a tease for you if ever there was one. Although I'm sure you know why. Now, we've got lots to discuss, Ross, so we'll jump straight in with both feet. We've already said pre-pod there's a few games in the Premier League that are a little bit dead rubber, so we're not going to spend a lot of time on those. We are, however, going to have a little bit of a focus on the bottom end and the top end. We're going to start at the bottom end because, frankly, that's where the excitement is, unless you're a Leicester fan, of course. So we have kind of a three-way split for who's likely to go down. It's 2 from 3, we think. Palace are not mathematically safe, but near enough. So we'll start with the order that the teams down the bottom played in. Newcastle got us underway as far as the battlers go, and they played Crystal Palace. It was tight, it was tense, it was frantic. There was a penalty missed, there was a wonderful free kick, and Newcastle got the points. What did you make of their performance, and what did you make of that goal?
Well, the goal was incredible. I think it highlighted the importance of set pieces, which I think this weekend has done as a whole in the Premier League. It's I mean, I said a couple of weeks ago that I thought the relegation fight would start just kind of falling into a load of draws and defeats, and Newcastle were one of the ones that I was worried for because they had Manchester United, I forget which now, Manchester City, and then they had Liverpool, and picking up 2 points from those two games, I think has turned it all around. The confidence is back up. They look like they've got a fresh energy, and they didn't look awful against Crystal Palace. I think Palace caused them enough trouble to make it tight, but it's a fantastic free kick from Andros Townsend, who if Newcastle do go down, I don't think he'll stay there for very long. I think he's already shown in the 6 months he's been there that he's still a very good player and can perform in the Premier League. So it's a massive win for Newcastle. Not the best game to watch, but the free kick was probably worth the price of admission.
And a massive 3 points. The penalty miss as well. Obviously, Johan Cabaye back on his former stomping ground, saved by Carl Darlow, who's had a fair bit of stick. You would have seen him when he was at Forest, I would imagine, last season. Good penalty, bad penalty, good save, bad save. What do you reckon?
Bad penalty, but you still got to be equal to it because penalties are never easy to stop, and I think that's massive. That's absolutely huge for Darlow, not just Newcastle. That is absolutely huge for Darlow because he has come in for a lot of stick. I think much like a lot of young kids that get their opportunity, they do kind of tend to overperform and push themselves a little bit too far. And I think he's guilty of that over the past few weeks. But that will do his confidence the world of good, and I think that inspires a lot of confidence in the back line as well. So fantastic penalty save for Darlow, but for Cabaye, that's quite a poor penalty for a player of his class.
Agreed. And are we Pardew in or Pardew out? It's kind of funny, isn't it? Because any other manager with this run, he'd have been gone, wouldn't he?
But... Oh yeah, he'd be long gone. I am neither at the moment, but I am certainly in the camp that says Pardew does not deserve a new contract. I think he should be carried on into next season and see what happens, because you're Crystal Palace, you're not going to be challenging for the Champions League, you're hardly even going to be challenging for the Europa League. So the FA Cup final is a great trade-off. You can almost forgive the poor run they went on. So I'm not in either camp at the moment, but I would say that if Pardew wants a new contract, he's going to have to prove himself next year.
Big time, yeah. Or of course win an FA Cup, as you say. That will, I'm sure we'll cover that at some point later on in the year, or in the season, I should say. But we'll move on to our next one on the list, Sunderland, who went away to Stoke City, who've conceded 4 goals in the last 3 games straight, or something like that.
Yes.
Not been on the greatest run, fair to say. And Sunderland got a last gasp penalty from Jermaine Defoe, which equalised a Marko Arnautovic goal. They would obviously have wanted 3 points, but in the circumstances, this 1 point will probably feel like a win, surely.
Oh yeah, of course it will. It's a big point considering how close they were to losing it, and they could not afford to lose ground on Newcastle this weekend. So it's a massive point for them and realistically for Norwich as well, because it keeps the bottom three all nice and bundled together, and everyone can still catch each other. So yeah, I mean, it's fantastic for Sunderland. It's very painful, I imagine, for Newcastle, who would have loved to have seen Sunderland lose there and go so many points clear of them. But it's a big penalty for Defoe. He really should have had more than one. He didn't need to just get one from the spot. He had so many chances in that game. But considering the circumstances, that's a massive point.
Absolutely. And do you, with regards to Sunderland, I mean, they've got a tough sort of run in. Do you think they'll look back at this game and it seemed to be quite an even contest throughout, and they had chances? Do you think they'll look back at this one and think, oh, we could have got? I mean, yes, they'll feel buoyant they got the point, but is there a slightly hollow feeling there, maybe?
I suspect there'll be other games that they'll look back at. I mean, especially the Southampton one where we got the point in the very last minute. I think there'll be other games that they'll look back at as the ones that really killed it if they do go down. But that is certainly one you could look back at. You know, if a 0-0 against Arsenal is a point gained, a 1-1 against Stoke is still a point dropped in a relegation fight. So I think there'll be bigger causes if Sunderland go down, but that's certainly one that I'm sure some Sunderland fans will look back at.
Absolutely. So that's 2 as a 3 down. Then we'll now move on to the other one in the mix. And I know you've got something to say about Arsenal and what went on at the Emirates, but we'll talk about Norwich first of all. They came away from the Emirates with nothing. Largely, they probably deserved a point, I would guess. Well, I wouldn't guess. I would admit, really, on the scale of the sort of the theme of the game, and they took the game to Arsenal for long periods, but just didn't have that killer touch. Do you think that's what's ultimately going to cost them in this relegation fight? That the lack of goals?
Yeah, it could very well do. I mean, Cameron Jerome, for as much as he found his niche in Norwich, is not a consistent Premier League goal scorer, you know, and they've already seen with Van Wolfswinkel that you need a striker that's going to get you 10 goals a season if you're in a relegation fight, and the other two teams have that in, you know, Mitrovic and Wijnaldum for Newcastle, and then Defoe for Sunderland. Norwich are the weakest up front, and unfortunately Naismith just hasn't done the job. So, I mean, they've come up with the same championship fight that a lot of teams do, but like most other championship teams, they just don't have that killer striker that can push them across the line. So it's definitely a huge factor.
Absolutely. Nor did Arsenal until Danny Welbeck came on, it has to be said. And with regards to Norwich, I mean, again, they've got tough fixtures. Where do you sort of see, looking at, we'll go through the fixtures, in fact, with the teams remaining. We'll start with Norwich, actually. So they've actually got a game in hand, as have Sunderland. They've got to play Manchester United at home next Saturday, 12:45. They've then got the game in hand at home to Watford, which you'd say is got to be when they've got to look to win. And then they finish against an Everton side, which is, you know, playing out the season and probably playing out the change of manager situation as well. So would you say if they're going to have any chance, they've got to take at least 6 points from those last 3?
Yeah, and it's got to start with a decent performance against Man United. You know, if they can keep a clean sheet at home to Manchester United, which I don't think is out of the realm of possibility, then they are in a fantastic position. But they need to make sure they take 3 points from Watford and Everton to have any kind of hope. And they certainly need favours from other teams. I'm not sure you're going to get too many from Newcastle, especially.
No, agreed. Sunderland, now they've got 3 games left as well. They've got a game in hand also. Their run-in also includes Watford and Everton, funnily enough. They have Chelsea away next Saturday. They have Everton at home. Chelsea at home, first, then Everton at home. And then they finish away at Watford. Same scenario for them, really. 6 points out of 9, got to be, surely.
Yes, so they need to start with a good performance against Chelsea. You know, they're in a little bit of a better position than Norwich. I think Norwich need the draw against Man United more than Sunderland will need a draw against Chelsea. But I think both Norwich and Sunderland will look at both of those games and say we can get something out of that. If they can do that, then it's again right in the mixture. But once again, I think it's going to come down to Newcastle. So I'm sure you're about to tell me the fixtures, and they're going to have the world's toughest run-in. But I think they've probably got what it takes at this point.
Yeah, well, funny enough, I don't think they have got the toughest running, because they've got
Villa. Aston Villa next week, haven't they?
Yes, Villa away next weekend, which, granted, on paper it should be straightforward, but the trouble is the game obviously isn't played on paper. And if you look at the last 4 results at Villa Park, you've had Newcastle have won the last 2. The last one was a 0-0 draw. Newcastle won the 2 previous to that. Going back even further, they had a 1-1 draw in 2011. They had a 1-0 defeat in 2011 as well, and a 1-0 defeat in 2009. So they've got a decent record of late, of the recent years. But of course, this was the ground they went down on under Shearer, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, but let's be fair. Rafa Benitez is not Alan Shearer.
No,
no. Rafa Benitez could beat the Aston Villa side that they played back then. Alan Shearer probably couldn't beat the Aston Villa side they're going to meet next weekend. So
agreed. Yeah, agreed. I think they have to beat Villa, and then of course they finish at home to Spurs. Now you'd look at that realistically and think, Spurs, brilliant season, etc., etc. But this title could be wrapped up, which we'll come on to in a second. If that is the case, do you think Spurs are going to have enough motivation? I mean, if they were to lose tomorrow night, which we'll come on to, they could be looking over their shoulders for second place. Equally, if they win it, they kind of secure second place. So, yeah, Newcastle, surely they've got to look at this and think, well, Tottenham might need it, but Tottenham can't actually win anything. They've got to be looking to finish with a win, really with 6 points from those 2 games, surely.
I think every team wants to finish the season with a win. I don't care who you are, where you are, if you're going up, if you're going down. I think every team wants to end the season with a victory. So I'm not convinced that Tottenham are going to be an easier job for either of the 2 teams they've got to play, and Southampton are one of them. So I'm cautious in saying that. But I still think that when you've got something to fight for like Newcastle have, it does give you an extra edge, and Tottenham will have to match that. And considering how much they run and how much they work, and the fact their season will be done by that point, whether they've won the league or whether they're second, that the season will be essentially over for them. So I'm not convinced that it will be an easy game. Don't get me wrong, but I still think there will be enough in it for Newcastle. They'll have that little extra edge to maybe get a draw out of it. But at the same time, Tottenham are a team full of quality, as much as you won't like me saying it. So it's flip-floppity, really. But you just never know. It's all very circumstantial at this point.
Yeah, very, very true. And don't worry, loyal listeners, if you're waiting for the return of the Predictatron, it will be back. We have predicted games. So it's our opportunity to look like utter morons by predicting the wrong things yet again. But we'll come back to that. Let's go back up to the top end then. We've obviously got a title race to chat about. It is still a title race because Leicester, who could have won the league this weekend at Old Trafford against Manchester United, they drew 1-1. Right result on the balance of play?
Yeah, I suppose you'd have to say so. I mean, the first half of Manchester United were very good. They were as good as I've seen them under Van Gaal. They were fantastic. The second half was a bit flatter. I think United probably realised that Leicester were going to go all guns blazing in the second half, and they did sit back a lot more. So I think, on the balance of play, yes, a draw would probably be the fair result. At the same time, Man United did cut Leicester down to some very, very sparing chances. And as I was saying earlier, we saw the importance of set pieces this weekend, and the only chance they really had that really concerned De Gea, I think, was the one that Wes Morgan scored from the free kick. So, I mean, on another day, it could have been a United win. But this is, again, the importance of set pieces and drilling them, making sure you know the organisation and the movement. And Wes Morgan's popped up with a very, very good goal. So, yeah, I mean, it's another point closer for Leicester. I think they would have loved to have won it at Old Trafford, but every point is a point closer at this stage, and I think they'll take it any way they can get it.
Agreed. We should address the 2 quite key incidents. Should Manchester United have had a penalty, and should Danny Simpson have been sent off?
You'd have to remind me of that incident because I don't remember it off the top of my head.
I
remember the Leicester one. I remember the Leicester one where Riyad Mahrez turned into Marcus Rojo.
Marcus Rojo, yeah, that looked a bit sus as well, didn't it?
Yeah, that was a bit of a tricky one for me, that one, because clearly Rojo is going to be in that position because there's nowhere else for him to go. In the time it takes Mahrez to turn, there's nowhere for Rojo to be. No. But at the same time, do you start with the defender? Do you give the benefit to the defender, or do you go with the attacker? I'm of the opinion that if you don't know, don't give it, and I'm not sure now, so I still wouldn't have given it.
True. Well, the other 2 incidents, you had the incident where Drinkwater pulled back when he was sent off.
Oh, of course, yes. Yes.
Memphis Depay.
I don't think that was a foul.
No, I didn't either. I don't think
that was a foul. If you can't tap someone on the shoulder as they're running past you, then everything's a yellow card, isn't it? It's not enough contact to make him go down, as far as I'm concerned. It's not enough to to physically change the direction of his movement or to slow him down. I don't think it's that bad, So I'm not convinced it was even a free kick, let alone maybe it even being a penalty. So.
Agreed. And the other one was the Danny Simpson incident was when he sort of took a bad touch on the halfway line, and I forget who it was running through. I think it was Martial, and he kind of got his body in front and got across him. It was one of those where you could have given it both ways, but I think the referee probably got it right by giving nothing in the end.
Yeah, I think because of the mess I think Schmeichel was running out to come and get the ball as well, wasn't he? I think that was just a big pile of bodies, and maybe it just blindsided the referee. But again, it's another one of those. If you're not sure, don't give it. And from the angle the referee was at, I can't imagine he would have seen clearly the contact, and I can't imagine the linesman would have either. So if you're not sure, you can't give it, and I think that's a fair decision. Whether it was the right one or not, I don't remember off the top of my head. I don't remember the footage, but I certainly remember it being a close one. But if you're not sure, you can't give it. So I think it's a fair decision.
Exactly. Yeah, you can't give what you don't see. So that's Leicester done. Obviously, we're recording this on the Sunday evening, so we don't know what's happened yet between Chelsea and Leicester, Chelsea and Spurs. But the permutations are simply Spurs have to win to keep the title race alive. Anything other than a win, Leicester will be crowned champions. And I can almost sort of see an Alex Ferguson on the phone at Sky Sports popping champagne moment. Do you remember that from years ago?
No, that's just past my area.
I think it was it's basically United won the league without. It might even have been the season Arsenal didn't win it, but whoever was at the title race, they didn't win their game, and Sky Sports had a camera at Alex Ferguson's house as he sort of popped champagne. But the best part about that footage was they still managed to get the Barclay card placard behind him, even in his own house, just in case for brand awareness, So cringe.
Well, unfortunately, they can't do that this time if Leicester do it because Claudio Ranieri is on a plane home to Italy. So
this is true, yeah. Although
he's going home for dinner with his mother, I hear. So.
I do quite like the idea of Mrs. Ranieri, Mama Ranieri in the background, sort of throwing pasta around and any other Italian cliches you can come up with. But no, I think we both agree that Leicester will do it. It's a question of when now, not if. I think we're agreed on that. But so we shall see what Spurs can do tomorrow, or indeed Chelsea. We shall see. Moving down then, I'm going to let you take the floor here because Southampton played on the Sunday today, and I think it's fair to say Man City rested some players, but there was no mugs out there. They had a decent lineup, and your boys took them to pieces. 4-2 victory. I have a feeling that's probably why you're in a good mood.
Yeah, it was good fun. That's what today was. I mean, they made 8 changes, and I completely understand why you'd do it. If you're Pellegrini, the one thing you want more than anything is to win the Champions League just before they get rid of you for not winning the Champions League. So I completely understand it. It makes absolute sense. And like you say, the team that they put out, there's no slouches in that team. They're all still very good professional footballers, but they were not at the races at all. The 3 that did stay were Hart, Otamendi, and someone whose name I now forget. But Otamendi was a joke in the back. He was so poor. The back passes, giving away possession, falling over, getting out-muscled. Hasn't got the pace for Mane or Long. And I said on our WhatsApp group before kickoff that I could already see the plan. It was Long up front, Mane, Tadic out wide, and then Jordi Clasie with the Hollywood passes over the top, and just keep running until eventually someone slips over or no one can keep up with you, and then you're through. And that's how the first 2 goals came about. And from there on, we just didn't look like we were ever going to lose it, I don't think. City had one good chance, aside from the 2 goals that Iheanacho scored, and Forster was level to it. Other than that, they didn't really threaten. They never really looked like they were even in control of the midfield. There was only a period in the second half, about 10 minutes, where they actually started to move the ball around and looked a bit more composed. But otherwise, it was all us, and it's one of those performances that you feel quite proud of to have seen and to know it was your team. The first half, especially, I think Koeman said it was the best 45 minutes of football since he's been at Southampton, and I can't argue with that. It was fantastic. Shane Long ran himself into the ground for the cause, and Mane got a hat-trick. Tadic got 3 assists, which is only the 4th player to have ever got 3 or more assists in more than one Premier League game. So can't argue with it. Fantastic afternoon, fantastic fun listening to some of the songs, and to just watch a team that this week is going away to Real Madrid to contest a place in the Champions League final, to play so poorly. It was fantastic fun for Southampton fans.
Yeah, but I definitely called this one. I must admit, I saw this coming a mile off, and I'm very pleased as an Arsenal fan that you did. And Tadic, spoiler alert, for those of you that still give any sort of a monkeys about Team of the Week, Tadic will be in it. I know it's a website only segment now. We've taken it off the main pod, but he will be in Team of the Week. And probably Mane as well, actually. I don't know if
Can have Shane Long in it, really.
I was going to say, he was awesome, wasn't he? He really, really was. Although I'm still a bit bitter about Shane Long's. Less said about the Arsenal 4-0 result, the better. Did you see the little vine going round of Andre Mariner kind of trolling Sadio Mane at the end with the ball?
Oh, where he nicked his ball, yeah.
Like Mane's face just for a second, like, what have you done? Quality, you got to love it. But as you say, Man City are, I think it's safe to say, minds elsewhere, but that doesn't take anything away from a very good Southampton performance. And just quickly, do you want to touch on Graziano Pella? Because your leader-in-chief, Ronald Koeman, dropped him. Do you want to explain to the listeners what you heard about this?
Yeah, I mean, all season we've been hearing stories that Pella is a target for a lot of clubs in Serie A, and he's spoken in January about how he misses the beauty of Italy and how Serie A is on the resurgency, and he'd love to be a part of it. He's 31, 32 now, and his contract runs up next year. We've now got Shane Long, Jay Rodriguez back from injury, Charlie Austin came in January. And there's all these rumours about another attacking midfielder / striker coming in the summer. So it looks like Pella's time is up. Koeman dropped him not just from the first team, but from the entire squad. He wasn't even in it because he said that he didn't have a very good week of training. He wasn't focused. He wasn't intense enough. So clearly his mind is elsewhere. And I'm okay if this is the end of Pella. He's been a fantastic servant, came in at a very good time for us when Ricky Lambert left, and has been a big part of Southampton for the past couple of seasons. But I think when you hit this kind of age, I think it's right to be allowed to go back home, as I know a lot of the South Americans do as well, and the Spanish. So absolutely fine if Pella wishes to go. The rumours that I'm hearing at the moment, the stories that I'm hearing at the moment, are that Pella will be allowed to leave in the summer after the Euros, because I have heard all kinds of Italian clubs in for him. I've heard Juventus and Inter Milan, and then I've heard Bologna, who are two teams at differing ends of the table. So my understanding is that he will be allowed to go to the Euros for Italy and then put himself in the shop window. If he does very well, then maybe Juventus and Inter Milan come in for him and we can bump up the price. If he doesn't do so well, then maybe Bologna come in for him and we can lower the price. So that seems to be the future of Pella. It's a bit of a disappointment if you're a Southampton fan, but I think today, with Long, Mane and Tadic, I think we've been shown that up front we can live without him.
Yeah, absolutely. And you'd probably back Koeman and the Saints board to have a replacement lined up already, given the history of how they do things. So we'll keep our eyes peeled. I'm sure we'll be doing the dreaded transfer watch at some point over the summer, so we'll keep our eyes peeled. Now, obviously, we've touched on the other top four side of things with Manchester United. We should briefly just touch on West Ham. Because they went away to West Brom, got a very convincing 3-0 victory on Saturday. Check Kouyaté and 2 goals for Mark Noble, who I'm not an England fan. I'll nail my colours to the mast, but how this lad has not got an England call is beyond me.
No, I completely agree. He's been very, very good.
And not just a captain, a leader and passionate, but he's a damn good footballer. Really, really is. And I know one of our loyal listeners, whose name I completely forget, it is Mark, who's at Thurlon's Eye. I know he's a big West Ham fan, and I'm sure he'll be quite happy we're talking about Mark Noble. But what do you think of West Ham's chances still? Do you still think, I mean, they're a point behind Man United in this race for the top four. They do have a game in hand, as do United.
Against Man United.
It is, isn't it? Of course, yeah, because of the FA Cup game. So conceivably, win that, that would put them 2 points behind Man City. I know it's a big if, but Arsenal beat Man City. Suddenly, there's a race again. I mean, do you think West Ham are still in with a shot?
Yeah, I think they've got more than enough to win against Swansea and Stoke, who are their other 2 games in the run-in. Man United is never an easy game. I think they found that out in the FA Cup as well. But I still think they've got the talent for it. They can certainly push Man United all the way. I'd predict a draw in that if I was predicting today. So they've got every chance, especially if their players turn up.
Absolutely. And fair play to them. I mean, West Brom is never an easy place to go, and to get a 3-0 victory, that is something impressive. So well played to them. Just before we leave the Premier League, we'll just give you the other results and just run down the tables. In fact, we'll do our Predictatron then, actually, so we'll get it out of the way before we move on to the Football League. So other results, a couple of other games. Watford, a dramatic victory over Aston Villa. There's some very good GIF files going around the internet of the It Crowd vine of the guy who sort of opens the window and jumps out of the tower block. Have you seen that one?
No, I can't say I've seen. Oh no, actually, yes, I remember that. I think Danny retweeted that, didn't he?
Yes, yeah. Opens the window and just jumps out and
Yes.
yeah, quality, absolutely quality. But yeah, Villa were 2-1 up. Kieran Clark, Jordan Ayew, reply from Abdi, and then the 90th minute, Troy Deeney scores twice, and it all goes to poop. So yeah, that is Villa gone. 11 straight Premier League defeats. My goodness.
Yeah, I think it's a great shame that result for Aston Villa, because I would have loved nothing more for them to get one more win before the end of the season, because I think they're going to get torn apart in the Championship next year. I think, if you can get a little bit of cheer before you go down, I would have loved it. And fair play to the Aston Villa fans; they were in great voice as well. They did make a party out of it. So I think it's a real shame that they threw that away as they did. But there you go. It's surmises their season really.
Yeah, absolutely. And I very rarely agree with Robbie Savage, but I'm with him on this one. Why Eric Black is not playing a few of the youngsters while he's got chances beyond.
Oh, yeah.
Still, strange one. And under pressure, Roberto Martinez and Everton won 2-1 against Bournemouth. Cleverly for Everton, replied by Mark Pugh from Bournemouth, a winner from Leighton Baines. Remember him? He's still around. I have to say, just quickly on this one, I thought a man under such scrutiny as Roberto Martinez is fair enough, but absolute touch of class, greeting every one of the family members of the Hillsborough disaster that were on the pitch paraded. I thought Everton were absolutely classy gesture, and Martinez really come out of that as a gentleman. Whatever you think of him as a football manager, he's a very nice bloke. Good win for Everton, that. And other results, Swansea and Liverpool was the other game, which we haven't covered. 3-1 victory for Swansea, much changed Liverpool side. Brad Smith was in and he was sent off. Bad for him. Benteke got Liverpool's goal, but Ayew and Cork had Swansea 2 up at that point, and then Ayew got a third to claim the points for Swansea. I think it's 4 straight home wins has secured their safety, so they're away.
It's a beautiful goal from Jack Cork as well. If you haven't seen it, it's a lovely, lovely strike. I don't know what Dejan Lovren's doing ducking underneath it, but it's a lovely strike.
It's Dejan Lovren, Ross. We all know.
Well, yes, I'm keenly aware of Dejan Lovren and his particular brand of defending. But
or lack thereof.
It's coming straight out. It's like, you're a defender, man. Stand up to it. But no, he ducked underneath it. It's a lovely strike there. If you haven't seen it, it's well worth a watch.
I haven't, and I shall, absolutely. Now, just before we do the Predictatron, and before we leave the Premier League, you wanted to have a little bit of a chat. It's no secret that a lot of people who listen to this podcast found us because of another brand of pod that I am part of, which is very much an Arsenal-heavy podcast about Cup Wonderland, if you don't know who we are. So we do have a lot of Arsenal listeners, and there was a certain protest, or lack thereof, whichever way you want to look at it, yesterday at the Emirates in the 1-0 victory over Norwich. You wanted to just have your sort of say as an outsider looking in on the sort of everything, really, the whole performance, the protest, and the whole sorry affair, shall we say. So I'll just let you, I'll just move the soapbox over, and away you go.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing to say, that it's kind of a side note, but I'm going to start with it anyway. Protesting inside the stadium, that's just blind stupidity, isn't it? But how much is it for an average ticket to an Arsenal game? It's record high in the Premier League, isn't it? It's 50 quid plus for a standard ticket for Arsenal. You
can probably get more like the 35 to 40, but the view is not as good. If you want a decent standard view, you're looking at about 45 quid. Yeah.
Okay. It's just right. I say this as a journalist, right? Because I've obviously, as a journalist, I cover a lot of the political stuff and protests there. If people were protesting, for instance, Starbucks for not paying their taxes, they don't sit in Starbucks, buy 3 cups of coffee, and go in with all their banners and their bed sheets and shout at people inside. They stand outside in a nice little group and they shout at Costa or Starbucks or whatever one I just said, and they cost them. They cost them money. They cost them business. That's the point. That's how you protest. You stop people buying their stuff. Why on earth are you spending 40 quid to go and boo your team? That makes absolutely no sense. And it's something that happens in all sports. So I'm not picking specifically on Arsenal for this, but that winds me up no end. If you're going to go to the game, support the bloody team. If you want to protest, stand outside and do it. That's how you protest. Doing it inside isn't good for anyone, especially not the view of your fan base, because that's where the whole world gets to see you. So blind stupidity. And you are allowed to jump in there if you'd like to add anything before I go on what I'd actually like to say about the Arsenal protest.
I will just ask you one simple question from the devil's advocate point of view. There are some, and I personally don't agree, but there are some that are saying that this has been a success because they've got the media coverage. They were on the back of newspapers. They were across social media. Sky Sports picked up on it. So there are some that are saying this has been a success because it's got more widespread coverage. How would you respond to that?
As a football fan, I'd say it's not a success because it's not going to work. As a journalist, I would remind you that that is news no matter what. If one man turns up to a protest, that's still news. That doesn't make it a success. It's just a news story because someone's come out to protest. It doesn't mean that it's gone well. It doesn't mean that it's a success. News is news. That happened. It's something that people will be interested in hearing. Doesn't mean anything. It's not indicative of how successful that protest was.
Fair, yeah, fair, absolutely. Okay, so go on from there then. So the actual protest itself, there was some very vile things that were chanted by a small minority, I think it has to be said, against the manager. There are Arsenal fans that are clearly divided. That's one thing that was very, very clear yesterday from the protest, that there is very much a divide between the fan base. And as I say, there are some that take it way too far. What's your sort of overall impression as a Southampton fan, as a neutral looking in? Of course, people will say, well, most teams would be grateful to have Arsene Wenger. So we know that. But what's your view just looking in as a whole from the outside?
I think I say this with the utmost respect for Arsenal fans because I know a lot of them and I now do podcasts with them. And a lot of Arsenal fans are still not as mental as some of the other ones and understand that this is football and you've got Arsene Wenger, in my opinion, at least for another year when his contract runs out, and protesting isn't going to do much. He deserves a little more respect than that, etc., etc. I say this with the utmost respect when I say that the protests against Arsene Wenger are completely delusional, and it boggles my mind that there are people that genuinely think that consistent success at Arsenal is a crisis for your club. I watched / listened to your show yesterday, which is kind of the reason that I wanted to say something on this pod, because I know Danny said that I like to remind the Arsenal fans that I do know that you know nothing of a real crisis, and I would like to extend that warning to every other Arsenal fan that listens. I mean, I understand that problems are relative, and Arsenal do have problems. I completely agree. I've watched them play. I think personally that Arsene Wenger's time is winding down. I think after next year, he's really got to start thinking about going, because I think it's time for something fresh at Arsenal. But it is not protest time, right? Danny mentioned this on the radio show yesterday. I've said to him before that that the real problems in football are something that Arsenal fans, Man United fans, Chelsea fans, they know nothing of. 2009, this is what the thing I really wanted to say to Arsenal fans. 2009, July 8th, was a Wednesday afternoon. I'm stuck in my maths class, the back of the room, with my phone out under the desk, back in the old days when you had to burn down a dinosaur and throw it in the back because internet didn't come like that on your phone. Back of the room, trying desperately to find some kind of news on whether or not the Marcus Liebherr takeover bid had been successful or not. Because if that bid hadn't gone through that Wednesday afternoon, the Liebherr consortium would have lost its anonymity and we would have had no buyers. And our deadline to find a buyer was that Friday. It was the 10th, I think. If we didn't find a buyer by the 10th, we'd be liquidated. Now, that was our last chance. It was the Liebherrs or no one, because the Tizier consortium had fallen through and it had to back off. The weekend before, I genuinely had to consider what would happen if I lost my club that week. I had to look around and say, right, if Southampton go, I've got to start supporting another team. I want to stay local, so then it's either Portsmouth, Bournemouth, or Reading. In an alternate universe, I'm out there supporting Reading because Southampton weren't saved that week. In this universe, thankfully, the Marcus Liebherr consortium took over, and now we're on the up. That is a crisis. That is something you can protest about. The way we were run back then is ridiculous. You look at modern day examples, Aston Villa, you look at Bolton, you look at Chester. I mean, Chester, a couple of seasons ago, Chester were docked minus 25 points for being in administration in the Conference League. You look at Hereford. Hereford were a League Two staple when I started watching football, and now I think they've just won the Midlands Championship. They just won that league. They're a Phoenix club now because their club went under. These are real crises. These are things that fans should protest about. The idea that consistent success in third or fourth every season is worthy of chanting for Arsene Wenger to die over the next couple of months, it's absolutely insane, and it makes me so sad for the Arsenal fans that are genuinely logical and sit there and go, well, actually, this isn't all that bad, because they must look around and go, you're giving us such a bad name. And neutrals look at Arsenal and think that as well. It's insane to think that Arsenal fans think that there is a genuine, real, huge, protestable kind of problem going on at Arsenal when you are the most enviable club, not just in the UK, but in the world, to be consistently in the top four, to go into every single season knowing who your manager is and knowing it's one of the best in the world, to know you're not going to get bullied out of your players every transfer window, to know you'll be challenging for the league, to know you'll be going in the right direction, and to have financial stability. Absolutely crazy. And I love Arsenal fans and for all they've done for me over the past few months on this pod and previously. But honestly, if you think that Arsene Wenger still being there is a huge, huge problem, then I've got no words to describe how tough it is going to be if and or when Arsenal ever have to go through a real, genuine problem.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. I just sat here nodding along to that, and you know, there is a split obviously in the fan base. There is this whole idea that you have to be an AKB, an Arsenal knows best, or a WOB, a Wenger out brigade. I have said on our podcast, on this podcast, on various mediums that I've always been very much of the belief that Arsene Wenger is the right man for the job until such time as he decides to move on. And I think a lot of people sort of connected with the Arsenal fan base think along the similar lines to myself, that they're not one camp or the other. We're all Arsenal fans and we all want what's best for the club. And I think this sort of sense of entitlement is a little bit kind of cringy. And as you said there, I think we are the butt of a lot of clubs' jokes now. And I made the point on our radio show yesterday that some Arsenal fans that mocked Chelsea for putting placards about Rafa Benitez up are the same fans that did exactly the same thing yesterday. And as you rightly say, you know, people want to protest, that is their right. And, you know, if it's done the right way, and to a large degree, it seemed like a lot of it was done the right way yesterday. But I'm completely with you. Until they stop putting the money in the turnstiles, in the club shop, it won't change. And I think that until the board is shaken up at Arsenal, I think that's far bigger problem than Arsene Wenger being in control of the club will ever will be. And I also think that Arsene Wenger, whilst he has, you know, to use I hate the term stale, but it's a good word. I genuinely think that until he's challenged from those above him, why would he change? You know, and unfortunately that has to change for it to do it. But hey, this isn't an Arsenal pod. We'll move on. But that was fantastic, and I will certainly be asking people of the Arsenal supporting generation to listen to that, because it's always good to get a view from a supporter of a different club. So thank you for that. Excellent.
It might just be me. It's because I watch a lot of lower league football. I get to see clubs going through these kinds of problems of finances and going out of business, and having gone through it myself, it is incredible to see the fans of the big teams not fully appreciate the real problems in football. I mean, Man United did this with Moyes, Chelsea did it this season with Mourinho. To be throwing your toys out the pram over something that is really not that big is maddening to me. And I think a lot of Arsenal fans just need to realise how lucky Arsenal fans have it.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% agree. 100% agree. Send us your thoughts, people, if you have thoughts on that. But I think you spoke very well, Ross. Appreciate that. Right, let's come back to Premier League then. We'll finish off quickly with the table and we'll talk a little bit of Championship. So as we've alluded to, Leicester are very close now. Very close indeed to winning this Premier League title. They have 2 games to go. They're 77 points. They are 8 points clear of Tottenham, who obviously have that game in hand with Chelsea tomorrow. Arsenal are now into 3rd outright on their own after their victory over Norwich. Man City, with their defeat to Southampton today, sit in 4th, 3 points back. Manchester United 60 points. West Ham 59 in 5th and 6th respectively, both with a game in hand. And then your Saints up to 7th. Liverpool, Stoke and Chelsea make up the top 10. And down at the bottom, as we know, Villa gone on 16 points. Norwich 31. Sunderland 32, Newcastle 33. The 2 former there, Sunderland and Norwich, both with a game in hand. It is very tight. Palace not mathematically safe on 39 points, but realistically should be all right now. Bournemouth, West Brom, Swansea, Watford, Everton make up the next place is up to 11th. So that's where the title stands. Now, rather than going through the top scorers and assists, we're going to go to the old Predictatron, because as I say, we did it last week and we didn't get a chance to do it because obviously I was missing in action. So we'll come back to it this week. So what we're going to do is we're going to read through the fixtures and give our thoughts on what we think is going to happen. So we start with the game tomorrow, which is Spurs and Chelsea at the Bridge. I've gone 3-1 to Chelsea. You have gone with?
I have gone 1-1.
1-1. And then looking ahead to next week's fixtures, we have Norwich, Manchester United. I've gone 2-1 Manchester United.
Yeah, I was a bit tougher on this one because I think Norwich are going to have to really scrap for it. I've gone Man United, but I've only gone the 1.
1-0. Okay. Bournemouth, West Brom, dead rubber. I've gone 1-1 draw.
Yeah, I've gone 2-0 Bournemouth.
And Aston Villa, Newcastle, another massive game. I think we both gone for the same, 2-1 Newcastle. Is that right?
Yes, after a bit of discussion, I convinced Kris that Aston Villa will score next week. So.
Yes, I had them at scoring 0, so you watch that come up now. Palace and Stoke, I've gone for a probably largely monotonous 1-1 draw.
I've gone for a largely even more monotonous 0-0.
Superb. Sunderland, Chelsea, big game for Sunderland. I've gone for another 1-1 draw here.
Unfortunately for Sunderland, I've gone 2-0 to Chelsea.
Ouch. West Ham, Swansea. I've gone for the Hammers 4-1 on this one.
I was feeling generous. It's not going to happen, but I've gone 2-2.
2-2, Desmond. Leicester, Everton. This for me, if they haven't, well, obviously with my results, they'll already be champions, but I've gone for a 2-1 victory over Everton. I think they'll come from behind as well, ironically.
Well, I've gone for 2-0. I think it would be a nice little celebration to go back home and to beat Everton. So I've gone 2-0.
WKD's all round. And Spurs, Southampton. I've gone with a 1-1 draw at the Lane next Sunday.
Yeah, I'm biased. I said 2-1 Southampton.
I hope you're right. And Liverpool at Watford is also a Sunday game. I've gone 3-1 Liverpool.
2-0 Liverpool.
And finally, the final game of next weekend, quite a big one for me. It's Man City and Arsenal. I've gone for a 1-1 draw.
So have I, but there are so many things that could happen in midweek that I'm not convinced by it.
It's tough, isn't it? Right. Let's both give our top 5s and bottom 4s then, because nobody else really cares about the rest of the league, let's be honest. So my top 5 then, Leicester, champions at this point then, 80 points from 37. Spurs second, 70 points from 37. Arsenal 2 points back, 68 from 37. Manchester City fourth, 65 from 37. Manchester United for 63 from 36, so 2 games in game in hand, sorry. And then down at the bottom, I've got Norwich in 19th on 31, Sunderland in 18th on 33, and Newcastle out of the bottom 3 points clear on 36, with Palace next up 40. What have you got? Top 5 and bottom 5?
Well, my top 5 is absolutely identical to yours, so no change. My bottom 3. I have Norwich 19th on 31, Sunderland 18th on 32, and then Newcastle 17th on 36.
There we go. So, largely, we think that by this time next week, Leicester will be champions, and we think Newcastle will still be out of the relegation zone. So get all your money on the opposite to happen, because it's almost guaranteed. We shall take some screen grabs of these and keep our eye, and we'll come back and see just how bad we were next week when we go back to the Predictatron for one final time. So keep tuned in and send us your thoughts. Right then, let's move on and leave the Premier League behind, because we're just going to talk a little bit of Football League before we do some questions to finish. I want to give Sheffield Wednesday some love in the Championship first of all, because they have secured their playoff place with a 3-0 victory over Cardiff. That is the playoffs locked and loaded. So just give us a little bit of love for Sheffield Wednesday, and do you want to just let everyone know who's in the playoffs officially as well?
Yeah, well, we'll start with Sheffield Wednesday because I watched the game, the Sheffield Wednesday Cardiff game. It was good fun. It was a good back and forth Championship game, but I think largely Sheffield Wednesday didn't really have to leave third gear because Cardiff was so off colour. It surprised me how poor Cardiff were in that game, and Sheffield Wednesday were thoroughly deserving of the win. I think 3-0 might be a little bit harsh on Cardiff, but at the same time, if you're going to play that poorly against a team that's got the attacking flair that Sheffield Wednesday have, then you always run the risk. The top 6 is, like, as Kris said, is now locked. So your top 6 now is Middlesbrough, Burnley, Brighton and Hove Albion, Hull City, Derby County and Sheffield Wednesday. So the top 3 is still very much in contention. I'm sure we will touch on this in a minute. But realistically speaking, I think you could have your pick of any of those 6. They're all very worthy of going up. And the one that I thought was weakest in this playoff was Derby, but they have been on a fantastic little run going into these playoffs, so you never know anymore. But those are your top 6. Like I say, I think you could throw a coin and get a heads or tails on any of them, because it's going to be a very, very interesting playoff run.
And we've got 2 big games on Bank Holiday Monday tomorrow, haven't we? We've got
we've got
Middlesbrough, Brighton at home to Derby.
Yes.
And Burnley at home to QPR.
Yes.
So 2 home wins, we think, from those.
And I should also tell the listeners that if Brighton win tomorrow, if they beat Derby County, they'll be up to 90 points. Middlesbrough will be on 88 because they drew to Birmingham City Friday night. And Brighton and Middlesbrough have to play each other next weekend. So it could be very, very tricky for Borough if Brighton end up winning against Derby tomorrow.
I don't know about you. Middlesbrough are the ones that don't convince me the most.
No, I think unless Middlesbrough go up automatically, I think they're in real trouble.
I could not agree more.
I think if they're stuck in the playoffs, there's going to be 3 other teams in there that are going to want it a lot more than Middlesbrough.
So hypothetically, let's say Brighton and Burnley go up, because personally that would be my personal preference.
Yeah, I think Burnley are the only 3 that I'm absolutely sure of.
I agree. So let's say they go up with Brighton, just for devil's advocate. If you had to pick a winner of the playoffs between Hull, Sheffield Wednesday, Middlesbrough, and who's the other one? Derby. Who do you think, based on current form and all the bits that go with it, if those were the 4, who would you be backing?
I would, at the moment, I stress that because the Championship changes game by game, I would go Hull because I think Steve Bruce has got... I think not only has he got the most experience, but I think he's got the best all-round team defensively and offensively. I think they are best prepared for it. I think Derby's issue with the fact they haven't actually got a permanent manager in will play against them as well as they've been over the last couple of weeks. I don't think Sheffield Wednesday are ready for it as much as I like them. I think they need another season to carry on building the squad. And Borough, like I say, if they don't go up automatically, I think they're going to be in real trouble. So for me, it would be Hull.
Interesting. And I'm going to stick with Sheffield Wednesday because I keep banging on about them. I'm going to stick with it just because I hope they do. Okay, let's wrap up League One and League Two as well, because there have been a couple of promotions and demotions this weekend. So do you want to give the listeners a heads up on who's going where?
Yes, League Two. I'll start with there because it's nice and simple. Dagenham, Redbridge and York City were relegated last weekend, so the relegation zone in League One is sorted. The top 7 is now locked. Your top 7 are Northampton up as champions, then Accrington Stanley, Oxford United, Bristol Rovers, Portsmouth, Plymouth and Wimbledon. Those are the teams that could go up. The issue with the automatic promotion places is that it is a real tight little bundle. You've got Accrington in second on 84, Oxford on third on 83, and then Bristol Rovers fourth with 82. So it's not sorted yet. It'll be a last gasp saloon kind of scenario next weekend, I think, with League Two. But some very, very good teams coming up from League Two, regardless of what happens. And frankly, it'd be fantastic to see Accrington Stanley come up after so long of being in League Two. It would just be so nice to see them come up. I think they'd end up doing a Yeovil as they did in the Championship a couple of seasons back. But nonetheless, it'd be lovely to see Accrington go up. So that is League Two. It is essentially all done except the automatic promotion places. League One is where it gets a bit more complicated because the top, Wigan, are up. They are all but champions. Guaranteed promotion, but with their plus 40 goal difference compared to Burton Albion's plus 20, they are all but champions. They need any kind of result, even a loss, unless there's a 20-goal swing. So Wigan are your champions of League One. Burton Albion are not up yet. The issue with Burton is that Walsall have not played yet. They have Fleetwood on Monday. I've been doing some maths and some calculations to try and figure out what all the permutations are, because this game will have implications on the bottom and the top. So we'll start with the top. If Walsall win against Fleetwood, then Burton Albion will not yet be confirmed of an automatic promotion place. It will go into the last weekend. They will essentially be there, but they'd still have to get a point to make sure they cross the line. If Walsall lose or draw, then Burton Albion are promoted. They cannot be caught, and up go Burton Albion. Walsall will have to contend with the playoffs. The other issue with that game, of course, is Fleetwood. Fleetwood are 20th at the moment, 48 points, 2 points above the relegation zone. So the permutations at the bottom are that if Fleetwood win against Walsall tomorrow, then Blackpool and Doncaster Rovers will both be relegated if Fleetwood win. But if Fleetwood draw, then Doncaster will be relegated, but Blackpool will not. Technically, they will not be anyway. They will still have to go and win their final game and hope that Fleetwood gets absolutely tonked because of the goal difference. But Blackpool will still not technically be down, but they will be all but down. So that's the permutations in League One. It's a bit more complicated than the other leagues, but certainly should still be a very tasty ending to the season in League One.
Absolutely. And on behalf of League Two, come on, Argyle. What are you doing? Seriously, honestly. Plymouth Argyle, they were, well, What can you say? As soon as I bet on somebody, you know what's going to happen. They were 1-0 up and cruising, and then contrived to concede 2 goals late on against Cambridge, and then went up the other end and got an equaliser. So and then did 2-2. But what are they doing? They're down 6th. So I think they are. Did you say they are secure in the playoffs now? But
Yes.
can't go up automatically. Boo. Or can they?
I would
No,
love
they
to
can't.
see Plymouth go up because they've been down there for far too long, as far as I'm concerned. I remember them as a championship team when I first got into football. So I'd love to see them move back up, but the League Two playoffs are going to be very tough.
Yeah, good old days of Ian Holloway. Anywho, right, so that's where we stand as far as everything goes there. Right, let's do some questions, and then we're going to finish with a section that everybody loves. Well, if they don't, they should. Right, we've got quite a few questions. We only had a couple, and then all of a sudden they flooded in. So we'll whip through them with a couple of quick fire answers. So the first one, first of many actually, is from our good friend Carl. He wants to know, as the seasons draw towards an end, what has been standout moments? So we could be here for hours, and we're all going to say Leicester. So I just want you to give me a standout moment from Southampton season, and a standout moment in general.
I think the standout moment in general is yet to come. I think that would be when Leicester hold the title. I can't think of one in general that immediately jumps out at me as the big, fantastic, incredible moment from this season. But I think that's coming. I think when Leicester win it, that would be the moment. As for Southampton, we've had a lot. I mean, the 3-1 away at Chelsea was huge. The 1-0 at Man United, the 4-0 over Arsenal at home on Boxing Day, the result today against Man City. I would have to give it to the 3-2 comeback win against Liverpool. That's probably where my standout moment would go to for Southampton.
That was a lot of fun. My stand-up moment, probably 2 at the moment. I would say the Mourinho-Ava Canero thing right at the start of the season. That's where that's where it all started to unravel. And also the Man City at home to Leicester. I think that was the first time when people, including me, genuinely went, they might just do this. I think everyone when they went to Man City and smashed them off the pitch. Wow. I think we all started to believe at that point. Well, actually, I'll be honest, even then I didn't believe, but it was the first time where a little thing in my head went, they might, So that would be my standout. James Seo at Loss Less, sorry. He wants to know which will happen first. Leicester, the movie, is released, or Leicester wins the Champions League, Leicester is relegated. So there's 3 very interesting choices there.
I don't know. The only one that's definitely going to happen is Leicester the movie, so I'm going to go with that. But considering where they've been and what they did this year, it will also depend on what kind of summer they have, because I think they're going to be in for a rough summer. But any of them could happen. But I'm going to go with Leicester the movie simply because I know it's happening.
And to twist the question slightly, I would suggest that, let me ask you, is it a one-off, or do you see them coming back and...
Oh, I don't see them defending it, no. Defending a title is completely different to winning it. There was no pressure on them this year, and it was as if the gates of heaven parted before them. Next year it's going to be a lot tougher because the league's changing again. So, no, I don't see them retaining it. But I didn't see them winning it this year, so who knows?
True. And, of course, they'll have Champions League to contend with. That will be interesting. Another one from Carl. With even the bottom club reported to be getting £100 million, will the record spending be the Premier League this season, this summer? I think it will, myself.
Yeah, I can see it being it. I don't know how much quality is going to come in. The Premier League does just like to splurge millions of pounds on a mediocre player and then go, yeah, fantastic, this guy's going to do everything, and ends up doing nothing. So yes, I mean, with the money that's involved, yeah, there'll be loads more spending, and the teams that come from the Championship are going to want to get involved as well. But yeah, whether or not it adds quality is to be seen.
West Ham. Keep your eye on West Ham this summer, I think, definitely. Particularly with something I've heard today, but I won't let it slip, because if it's wrong, I'll look like a complete dummy. But I heard something quite big today. That's
all right. I got Championship transfer news to talk about later, and that's probably not going to happen either. So.
Well, hey, there we go. I've heard a little rumour that West Ham have agreed to quite big signings already. So both from the French League. I shall say nothing more. Checky Nando's lad, our good friend. Will Leicester experience the Southampton of 2014 exodus this summer?
I think they're in danger of it because I know from personal experience that you go through a really good season and you think, yeah, why do players want to leave? Oh, yeah, they're not going to leave us in the summer. And then the summer comes around. And because they get to sit home and think about it, suddenly a team like Barcelona, Real Madrid, Man United, whoever else comes in and suddenly their heads turned. So it's a distinct possibility. What I'd like to think for Leicester's sake is that the players will go, no, one season at least. We got us here. Let's enjoy the Champions League. And then after that, I think the real exodus will begin. But I know Leicester fans will be thinking right now, oh, there's no way any of these players would leave. But trust me, they will always leave if the price is right.
Agreed. Yeah, I think 3 or 4 of those will be on the move. We shall see. This one comes from Catherine, who's at Koi Gooners Girl. She does some excellent work for us on the website behind the scenes. For those of you who don't know, give her a follow. She wants to know, would you rather Leicester clinch the title with a Chelsea win, i.e. tomorrow against Spurs, or with them winning at home to Everton?
As a neutral, I'd love to see them do it at Everton. But for Leicester's sake, I want to see Tottenham screw it up tomorrow night, because I think if you watch them play against Man United today, they looked very nervous at the start. When they went a goal down, okay, great, they got one back from the set piece, but they didn't look fluent enough in open play. Second half, they weren't good enough. It looked for the first time like the nerves had gotten to them. So I think if it's taken out of their hands, it'll be a lot easier for them. If it's still in their hands, they could stumble across the line. So I'd much rather see Tottenham win it for them tomorrow.
Everything you said, with you 100%. Another one from Carl. He's all over the questions tonight. Is our Carl? This is his third question. Why do you think there is such a premium on English players compared to their European counterparts? I know that's a really question you could go on for hours, but your basics on why you think that is?
For me, it's because of the homegrown quota. Because the Premier League has to fulfil the homegrown quota, and teams know that, and will say, right, fair enough, you can have him, but we want more money out of you, which makes perfect business sense. But I personally think it's the homegrown quota thing. I don't know if the other leagues do it. I don't think off the top of my head of many other European leagues that have this quota, and they do fine. It's only the Premier League. So I think it's something to do with that. If you know that you have to have a quota and other teams know you have to start buying them, then of course the price will go up.
And massively overhyped as well, English players, definitely. Another one, I should say, from Chekolic. He has asked, what 3 players from the other European leagues do you think could move to the Premier League this summer? Now, that's probably one for our other pod. So I'm going to reverse it, and I'm going to ask you if you can give me anyone that you think could leave the Premier League and be a star overseas. So I'm going to change the question around. So a player that you could see leaving a Premier League team now to go on to be a star in Europe. So somebody who could go to Barcelona or Real. It doesn't have to be English. It can be anyone.
Yeah. It's tough. I don't think that there's. I think the quality players that we've got in this league wouldn't move, but the rest of it, I don't think there's enough quality to make a big splash overseas. I think you've got to be looking at a mid-table kind of splash, because I think Pella would do very well in Italy. So I could put him in, but he's not going to make a splash for Juve or for Inter. I think Riyad Mahrez could do a good job if someone comes in for him. But I think of all the other big players, and I think they'd stay. Payet's the only other one I can think of off the top of my head, but I don't see any reason why he'd want to leave West Ham at the moment, unless a Real Madrid or someone came in for him. But you're not going to get past Ronaldo if you're Payet. So it's tricky. It's very, very tricky. But I would plumb for Mahrez, Pella, and Payet. 3 off the top of my head.
Agreed. Yeah, I will go with you on Mahrez, and I think a certain Eden Hazard is going to be off from Chelsea.
See, I hadn't even thought of him because he's been so bad this season.
Exactly. I think he will be off, and I think he'll end up somewhere like Real Madrid or PSG, and all of a sudden, amazingly, he'll find his form again. Funny how that works.
Speaking of PSG, I heard today that the football director, or the director of whatever in PSG, was down watching the Leicester game today to see Mahrez and Kante.
Leonardo, was it?
It might be. I can't think of his name, but I remember reading today that the PSG director was down there today. I know Mahrez has already said he's not interested in PSG, but if they offer him the moon, then he's obviously going to be interested. So another one to watch.
And Kante alongside Blaise Matuidi, definitely could see that. Definitely, particularly if Rabiot moves on. So yeah, could see that one. Right, final 2 questions, and you can do a little bit of transfer gossip, and we'll get out of here. So Anders B at Swedish_bastard. Naughty words. If Arsenal could sign only bearded players this summer, which ones should they go for? I'm going to say Joe Ledley, just because he's got a magnificent beard, but he is not very good. But
Oh, I don't know. Does Pogba have a beard?
Well, actually, I'll bring in Danny on this because Danny says at this point, he says, can Messi grow a beard? Can Pogba grow a beard? Can Aguero grow a beard? So I think Danny's changing the rules here. But
You see, I don't judge football players by their beards, unfortunately. So none spring to mind.
no.
So I'm unfortunately I'm not well equipped for this question, but fantastic question that is.
And what do you class as a beard? I mean, because Mahrez has got a bit of a beard, but it's not like it's not a big bushy beard, is it? It's just
Yeah, it's more like stubble, isn't it? It's not a hipster beard.
No, it's a tough one. That I think we'll have to think about that. I'd probably say Benzema would be the biggest name I could think of with a bit of a beard going on at the moment.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of German ones that Pep's going to bring with him, but I can't think of any.
German bearded players. Write in, people. Javi Martinez, maybe. Yeah. Mats Hummels, of course, who's off to Bayern. So.
Oh yes. Yeah. Much to Drew's chagrin, but yes.
Yeah. Oh no, that's probably more of a goatee than a beard. But anyway, enough of this talk. Good question, though, Anders. So if you can think of bearded players, send them into at the FH podcast. Nat Borchers from Timbers as well. Danny will love that shout. Right. Before we do a return of our much loved segment that I shall ask you in a moment, a couple of little bits of gossip you've got Championship transfer wise. Do you want to just run that by us?
Yes, I wouldn't normally do this, but this is one that I believe that will happen over the summer. So there is a very strong rumour about Dominic Iorfa of Wolverhampton Wanderers. He is a right back, he's English, he's 19 years old, very strong, very quick. Not the best technically, but at 19 years old, you've got time to grow into that. I think he's going to be a very good player. I think a lot of people that do see him and get the chance to watch him also know he's going to be a very good player. And the Wolverhampton Wanderers manager, Kenny Jackett, has already said he'd rather keep him and build a team around him than have to move him on. But Wolves are not in the best financial situation at the moment, so there is a lot of Premier League interest in Dominic Iorfa. I'm hearing that Southampton, West Ham, Crystal Palace and Arsenal are all interested. The reason I wanted to bring it up mainly was because of the Arsenal news that I've heard is that possibly Kieran Gibbs and or Jenkinson will be moved out and Dominic Iorfa will be brought in. So interesting if it happens. I think you would have a very, very talented young right back on your hands if it does come off. Whoever gets him, I think is going to have a very talented young right back on their hands. But I thought I'd bring it up for the Arsenal fans that are listening because that concerns ins and outs. So I think Iorfa will be a fantastic addition if you do pick him up. Definitely one for the future.
I really like him. He's a big, muscular, powerful fullback, and hasn't he played at centre back a bit as well?
Yes, and he's also played for the England under-21s. He's also done training with the England national team. So clearly, big things expected of him. I get to see him play with Wolves, and he is always a threat. I mean, I like Nathan Byrne. I've said on this podcast before that I'd love to see Nathan Byrne go to Southampton, but Dominic Iorfa is absolutely one for the future. And if you can get him now, and I think you'd probably get him for less than 10 million, I think that's an absolute bargain from the Championship, and Wolves are in a position where they have to sell if a decent offer comes in. So be a fantastic opportunity for any big team, especially Arsenal if they want to build, because Bellerin at left back and Iorfa at right back, that's two very good wing backs for the future.
Although Bellerin, of course, is actually a right back.
Oh,
so
okay.
So you'd have to switch. But
you have to switch one of them. I think Iorfa can play left back though. So.
Although at the same time, why not have two quality young right backs who can compete with each other for years to come? That would be the other argument. Because I like Carl Jenkinson, but I'm not sure whether he's the quality that we need personally.
No, I think if he was going to make it, he would have made it by now, wouldn't he?
Yes, and Kieran Gibbs, the rumours we hear are very similar to what you hear. I think he will be moved on, I know for a fact, I've got it on very good authority that Arsenal have agreed a deal in principle with a player who is currently playing his trade in, yes, you've guessed it, the French league. However, it's not been signed off. So everything is done. It's now down to Arsenal as to whether he decides to pull the trigger. So, yeah, I think it's fair to say that with a left back coming in, Mr. Gibbs' days are probably numbered. And weirdly, I could see him at Southampton, funnily enough. I could see him at sort of a club of that kind of level because I think it would be a good move for him.
Newcastle is who I've heard.
Yeah, Newcastle.
Gibbs.
Yeah, I could
but
see
I think that also depends entirely on whether or not they stay up. So
yeah, absolutely. Okay, good. So there you go. That will get the Arsenal Twitter sphere on their computers going. Who's this Iorfa bloke? Let's get him on. Good. I like him, so I'm with you. Good shout. Right, before we go, we're going to bring back a much loved segment because it's been sadly missed. By me anyway, even if by nobody else. And it's Ross's Dross and Ross's Boss. It's a little segment where you get to pick a player that you really liked this weekend and a player that you didn't like so much. So let's start with the good. So who's going to be your boss of the week?
Unfortunately, I'm going to be extremely biased, and you are more than welcome to contest this with me if you can think of anyone else. But I watched nearly every game this weekend, and I think the best player that I saw this weekend was Shane Long. The endless amount of running, the goal he scored, he was always a problem for Man City. He was one end of the pitch 1 second trying to get the ball in the back of the net, and then you blink in West Ham, Man City are countering, and then suddenly he's in our own box defending. I think Shane Long was incredible this weekend, so I'm going to pick him.
No, I can't argue. As I say, he divides opinion, but my God, he puts some work rate. So no, I can't disagree with that one. So what about your dross?
I'm also going to remain biased because again, I watched nearly all the games this weekend, and I can't think of any one standout awful player that had an awful day. I know that Cabaye missed a penalty, and there were a couple of other players, especially for West Brom, that just went missing. But I'm going to cheat, and I'm going to give my dross to Pellegrini for awful selection, for whatever he said at half-time, which clearly didn't work. I'm going to have to give it to the whole Man City team, so therefore Pellegrini. I thought they were just awful, absolutely awful. As a team, they were worse than any individual this weekend. That's how bad they were.
Ouch. There you go. That is, he has delivered the hammer of justice, and that has been laid down upon. There is the boss.
It's my theme today, isn't it? The hammer of justice.
It is indeed. Yeah, absolutely. We should. I'll have to try and make up some sort of comical thing that we can tweet for your boss and dross for next season. I'll have to work on that.
Can't wait.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, right. Well, that is another Football Hipsters English breakfast in the tin, if you will. I could have said in the can, but in the tin sounds more breakfasty. So. Superb as usual. Some fantastic content this week. I'm sure a lot of people will enjoy that. And as usual, if you want to get in touch with us, you can at the FH Podcast. We are on YouTube. We are on iTunes. We're on Stitcher. We're on all sorts. So do look us up. Tell your friends. We like to spread the word. And if you're listening for the very first time, you can catch us on a Sunday talking all things English football. And you can catch us on a Tuesday, normally mid-afternoon, when we release the podcast where we cover all of the the major 4 European leagues and a little bit of a splattering of the rest of the European leagues in the mix as well. So you can listen to that anytime. And of course, myself and John will also return next week with the Satchel, which is our wrap-up of the European action, where we're going to cover all the semi-finals that will be completed this week. So thank you, Ross, for your time. As always, much appreciated to you.
Thank you, as ever.
And I can't get this half as brilliant as you and Danny managed it last week. It was seamless. But I will say, keep your beard strong and your glasses trendy. I have been your host, Kris. This has been the Football Hipsters podcast. And we will speak to you on the main pod in a couple of days.
It's Bergkamp. That's magnificent.
Mark Vivian Foet, Sinclair's cross over Cunningham.
Di Canio! Oh, I do not believe that. That is sensational.
Letizia. He's going for goal again. Oh! Only Matthew Letizia can score goals like that.
Collymore closing in.